Let me know when you think you got everybody, Mark.
I believe I did an admit everybody, so I think they're all in.
Okay. So we will we'll reconvene to open session. And Mark, you want to give us, actually, first things first, just a second. There were some errors in the agenda that need to be addressed at the beginning of the meeting.
I'm asking your dad.
Hey, could everybody please mute your microphones, please, unless you're ready to speak.
I lost everybody.
So please mute your microphones. Okay, informational items. Item B8 on the agenda. The complete packet is included in our binders. The agenda posted was missing the odd numbered pages. So the board has received those packet items. Item number B5, there were employee status changes. There's a correction to school site for S. Jevons was hired for Brookside, not Blosser. And item number B7, board policy exhibit 1113. The board report was placed behind the backup. So that's just some quick housekeeping to bring everybody up to speed. Mark, if you want to give us a report out of closed session.
Yes, we took action on a classified leave, maternity leave, and unanimously supported that. We took action on what we call probationary non-renewals. There are people who aren't fully certified who are working on their certification and should have it completed by the end of the year. But we have to do a probationary non-reelect in case they don't get their things done. But we're very confident they're going to get their things done, and we like what they're doing and want them to stay. So we're pretty confident that that goes away. We also we have to release 2 employees who are doing long-term placements that are longer than a long-term sub. And so those are released at the end of the year because they are replacing full-time people for longer than what a long-term sub is allowed to do. And so that's a customary thing to release them at the end of the year. And everybody involved is notified of who they're at and what's going on.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Because 2 of those items were resolutions that were dealt with in closed session, we have some a little more housekeeping. So let me read the legal portion of this. Item 4A regarding resolution number 8, release of temporary certificated employees. It was a motion by Diane McNeil, seconded by Jeannie King, to adopt a resolution to release temporary employees and authorize the district superintendent or his designee to notify the employees listed on attachment A that they will be released effective June 15, 2021. It was a roll call vote. 100%, all 5 board members voted in favor of that resolution. Item B, item 4B, regarding resolution.
Hey, Alex,
go ahead.
There's some things that you need to, there's a statement that you read on these. Are you looking at those?
That's what I thought it was. Hang on a second. Is that what you sent me in the email? Because I didn't get it.
So this needs to be read out.
This is green.
Okay.
Yeah, if you sent me another email, because I thought I saw something. Is that it right there? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm reading, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, it's during the previous closed session. Is that what you're reading, Alex, for A?
What I have here is something that was sent from you. Yeah, it says mandatory language.
Yeah, it's. You want me to just read off A for you?
Is it different from what we're doing?
Yeah, it says during the previous closed session, the board acted to authorize the district superintendent or designee to notify temporary certified employees pursuant to Ed Code 44954A that they will be released from employment effective the date set forth in the resolution. And the vote was as follows. And the vote was a roll call unanimous vote by all members.
And come in here.
Why?
Okay,
Exactly correct, Mark. Unfortunately, I don't have that.
What do you need help with?
okay.
Hey, Amanda, your microphone is not
What do you
turned
need
off.
help with in the kitchen?
So Mark, if you could read the same thing for the second resolution?
Yeah.
Dishes.
So the second
Brent,
one
I
is,
really want you to put it down. Please, put it down.
Okay.
I gotta figure out how to mute somebody.
You're eating thing.
Amanda,
Okay, I'll go. So this is,
Mark, it's under participants and you'll see their name and you'll see where a microphone is and a camera and you can choose to mute them that way.
yeah. So the following motion was adopted by the board in closed session. The motion by, and it was Diane McNeil and Robert Chavez to adopt a resolution of non-reelection for probationary certified employees and authorize the district superintendent or designee to notify employees listed on attachment 1 that they will not be reelected for the school year, for the next school year for 21-20. And in closed session, the board took action to non-reelect the 2 teachers. The vote was unanimous, and those were the 2 things that needed to be read openly. Okay?
Thank
And again, both of these are commonplace things. We want to make sure our teachers are fully certified and they have some requirements to jump through. And I know they're going to do that and we want to keep them on board. We just have to follow the motions. The state requires us to make that motion by the 15th of March, but they have till the end of the school year to get their stuff in. So we're pretty confident that's going to happen. We just have to cover our bases legally.
So that's our report out of closed session. Thank you, Mark, for assistance.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're looking for a flag salute. If Mr. Chavez would be kind enough to lead us in a flag salute, and everybody please mute.
Glad to do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Robert. Item A has been stricken from the A has been stricken from the agenda. Item B, want to give us a little background on item B, Mark?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure, is Kelly, are you on? I don't believe, I didn't know if I saw her.
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay.
seeing if I'm unmuted.
Yeah. I just want to do a little preemptive before you tell them, Kelly. But I am not saying this to blow her horn in front of everybody, but I'm going to. Kelly is a super hard worker and gets a ton done and has a boatload on her plate. She's like having 2 employees, and everything in special ed is run by the federal government, but documented and worked on by the state. It's a pass-through from the state. And so the state of California is documenting every INT possible, and Willits was targeted for what's called disproportionality, which means we have too many of one type certified in special ed for something. I believe Kelly can clarify the number. I think we have 2 more students in a category who are the same ethnicity than we should have. And so we are in what's called disproportionality. And so we have to work through a process over the next 2 to 3 years to fix that. Bear in mind, we don't get to choose who we get. And bear in mind that we don't choose to have kids in special ed for no reason. We happen to be in this scenario and they're asking us to evaluate our data and see if we can work on a program so this disproportionality does not exist any longer.
She does so much work.
And Kelly's way on the way to doing that. And she's got help from other district people like Marion and her teaching staff to do that. So Kelly, I just wanted to give you an intro.
Well, everybody works hard. What we are under review by the federal government and the state, although our district is struggling in several areas, but the review areas are test scores for kids with IEPs. How much time students with disabilities get to be with their peers in a general ed environment. They're looking at that. They're looking at how often kids with disabilities are suspended from our sites, because we want to make sure that it's not just because they have a disability that we're doing something different for them. But the area that we have been marked as disproportionate is that we have more students than our average ADA who have an eligibility of emotional disturbance. So kids who have emotional and behavioral issues, and they look at race and ethnicity. And in Willits, we have disproportionately more students with emotional needs who happen to be white and than other, it's not an even fit. So, the good news really is that we are, by looking at how to fix us over identifying kids with emotional needs, we are really going to look at the whole program. What are we doing in Willits to really remedy young kids who have behavioral needs, who are, stressed out or might be, not coping very well in the classroom, instead of immediately saying, oh boy, they need to have special ed, we need to test them, we need to put them in this program over here. We're required now by the feds to take 15% of our federal special ed dollars and put it towards interventions, so that are before going into special ed programs. So we have a stakeholder committee. Kathy Crossman is part of the stakeholders. Nikki, because it's things going to be on our stakeholders, Mary Lona, and we're also going to be having some meetings, inviting people from the community. What can we do that's different? Can we do more outreach? Do we need some people helping coach parents about how to work with behavioral needs? So those are the directions that we're going to go. The money needs to be shifted into prevention and intervention all of next year, so the 21-22 school year. And then the plan where we're going to try and fix this and do the interventions needs to be in place and will be reviewed for the next 3 years. So more to come. I'll report out on it as we go. And, I think even though we're sort of under review by the feds, it's a problem we've been aware of, and we really do want to help kids get what they need so that they aren't acting out in class or having, crisis behaviors. We want to help them out. So,
Kelly, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Kelly, I have a question. Have you worked on, or do we have a RTI pyramid for behavior?
Yeah, that's the beauty of what the plan is, that so we have an Mtss committee that has folks from every single site, and this began with a grant that Kathy Crossman kind of headed up, but many of our administrators and teachers were a part of this Mtss grant. And so we do have an Mtss and RTI both mean different levels of intervention. So we have been reviewing, Jeff Kramer, also our counselor, has been a part of this group. we're reviewing what do we do with all the kids in the classroom to help out with emotions and behavior. And then do we need to do some things for these kids? So there is a plan, and we meet regularly to try and help staff and families put things into place.
If we can put it towards tier one or the bottom of the pyramid, sometimes they reverse those numbers. Tier one, I'm talking about the bottom, the larger portion. What I found is a lot of times districts are putting so much money into those top tiers, they're forgetting about putting enough resources and money in the bottom tiers where you can nip it in the bud before it gets away from them. So I appreciate that you're doing that. I look forward to seeing how it.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. And yes, what we would like to do is exactly that. So instead of all the dollars that we spend, I mean, we have some really fantastic programs, but it would be nice for kids, teachers, families to access those resources from the get-go when they're in kindergarten or first grade, and where you don't have to be special ed to get those resources. And so, yeah, that's the plan. Stay tuned.
And I just want to say that there's a rationale for the state doing this. If you were LA Unified and you had 40% more Hispanic students ED than your other population group, there's a problem. The problem is our number gets skewed by 2. You know, when you have 12, 2 is a large percentage of that. So we have to work through that number, and that's okay. It doesn't hurt us this is a big dive into what we're doing that creates special ed and how you get in and out of it and how we certify what students need. So the offshoot of it will be good. The problem is it's a mandate, which means there's timelines and paperwork, and I've been on 3 webinars. Kelly's probably been on 15 already. So we'll go through it, and good will come of it.
Okay, well, thank you.
I just wanted to say that I love special ed personnel and all that they do. It's if you haven't been in special ed, you don't really have any grasp of how much paperwork there is to do, how many hoops there are to jump through, how many deadlines. It's just endless. And as soon as you get one thing accomplished, then all of a sudden you have some other expectation from, and to me, people in special ed, work in special ed are saints, so, including Kelly.
Well, I'm sure lots of our staff are here. So I'm going to say a thank you for all of us, because we love it. They're all our kids. We like doing it.
Thank you. Any other comments on item B, 8B? Okay, we'll move on forward. WTA, Tessa.
Good evening, Alex. Good evening, board members. Oh, man. A great deal has been happening, but most of the focus has been on the plan for reopening our school campuses in a way that makes sense and keeps our students and teachers and families safe. We are still in a pandemic. More than half the population, including children, are still unvaccinated, and multiple variants of the COVID-19 strain are emerging throughout California. Nonetheless, teachers are motivated and excited to get back with students easily as much as the parents are ready to send them back. We've worked with the superintendent and the school board to develop sound plans for all parties, which I will have Brian Bowles as representative for the negotiations team elaborate on in a moment. In the special meeting last month, the board discussed March 8th as a potential opening date. Obviously, that didn't happen, so the next likely date is this coming Monday, March 15th. Gauging the emails and texts I've been receiving for the last couple of weeks, it appears that TK 2 teachers are fully prepared and ready to start as soon as possible. But 3rd through 5th teachers that I'm hearing from are saying that they need more than 2 days to get their classrooms and their curriculum ready to change teaching style again, to be back in the classroom. There is a tremendous amount of front loading that needs to happen in order to be ready for the first day of school. And even if they all work on the weekend, 4 days is not enough. There is particular concern from members at the middle school, not only because of the short notice of being asked to be back on campus next Monday, but especially because the teachers will have entirely new rosters and entirely new curriculum. Where they might have been teaching 7th grade science, they might be assigned 6th grade math, for example. Even the most experienced teacher would need at least a week to have classrooms and lesson plans and materials ready for in-person teaching. It's anticipated that the high school might reopen a couple of weeks after our initial soft reopening. Nobody wants to delay any longer than necessary, but it would be foolish to rush in on something that needs to be done carefully and safely and with written plans in place for everything from what you do when you need a sub to how will the children go to the bathroom to where do they eat, when do they eat, and what will really happen with students who don't follow the protocols. Every site has been having discussions, but all the details haven't been nailed down and/or communicated with faculty. It really needs to be solid before we bring children back on campus. It is my hope that the school board will give serious consideration to a date later than next Monday for the sites I mentioned at least, in order to make the return as organized and safe as possible. Thank you for your time and consideration. And if Brian could now share information about the MOU, please.
Thank you, Tessa, and thank you for letting me
Mr.
share some of
Bowles.
that time. I appreciate that. First, I'd like to start with a couple thank yous that I think are well-deserved. Mark and Trina are the other side of the table from the WTA during negotiations, and both sides have a tireless job in that, but I really appreciated their willingness to have an open dialogue and a communication and explain their side of things so that we could get to a common ground that worked for everybody. And so thank you, Mark and Trina, especially for being that side of that table that we bounced our ideas back and forth with. And then a big thank you to the board as a whole. And then I'd like to specifically thank Alex Bolds and Paula Nunez, who were at the negotiations meetings. As board members, they can't give input. They were there as flies on the wall. But I think it's a big step in moving forward to a collaborative effort and a positive plan moving forward. And it felt more like a family was working towards a common goal with that many people in it. So I really wanted to appreciate that and know that it took time outside of your lives beyond your standard board meeting. And thank you for that. I wanted to reiterate quickly what Tessa has said. She stole a little bit of my thunder that I had planned to talk about, but we worked with all of our sites, and our MOU really is considerably tough because it was site specific. So we dealt with each site and the needs of each site, and each site has different realities, all the way from Sherwood, who's a satellite school up on 20 minutes out of town, to the high school, which is an impossibility to have stable cohorts, to our K-5 staff that is already built into a stable cohort. So each one took a lot of effort. And the real goal for all of us, both district and WTA, was to create a safe spot for the students and the staff and everybody that's going to be working at that school. And so we took that job very seriously, and I think Mark and Trina did as well. And so that was our common goal, and I think we hit the nail on the head with that. And one thing that we don't talk about is the efficacy of the vaccine. And one of the real positives that has come out of the vaccine is that your chances of having any kind of serious illness or death from it, if you've taken it, are virtually zero, at least for the next 3 months. And so that's something to kind of take into account as a teacher and as a community member as well. If you're in the boat of getting a vaccine, those are things that are going to help this boat continue to sail forward. So the flip side of that is there is no vaccine for our youth, which we are bringing into closed spots. So that is where we put a lot of our focus, is making sure that is safe. So the last thing I really want to consider is that the reality of that middle school site. That is the only site as negotiators we did not receive a plan for to help discuss. It was still being modified even this week, and the schedules for the students are yet to be completed and won't be until Friday of this week. And so besides it being a Herculean task anyway, professionally and responsibly, if I say for one site in particular, I think the middle school will need some time to professionally and responsibly open. So I'd like you to consider that in earnest when you make your decision tonight. Last but not least, I want to really put a plug in to our CSEA, because this whole ship that we're sailing on would not even get off the dock without them. And they've done a tremendous job. They're the ones that are going to implement a lot of the things that came through with it, and already have implemented the things that came through with our MOU, filters, fans, all the safety, all the cleanliness, all the work that has to be done that no one gets to have a conversation about is being done right now, literally right now in some cases, by our CSEA members. And we are absolutely a team together. And I personally thank each and every one of them right now and forever in the future for everything that they have done and continue to do for our school district. I think that is all that I have for us. The last piece of the puzzle that has to do with our MOU is that we have a date for members that have pre-existing conditions that would put them at higher risk for catching COVID and having negative effects. And that deadline is this Friday. And so it may or may not affect the staffing at the middle school site. And so those are also things to take into consideration when you figure out an opening date. Thank you again. And thank you, Tessa, for the time that you've given me to share the MOU with everybody. And I appreciate everybody here. All the help and extra work that's gone into keeping the school floating is much appreciated by me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. See, we have board comments, and let's go ahead and start with Paula. Excuse me, we got CSEA, excuse me. Dan, are you out there?
Good afternoon, this is Dan. It's good to see that there's progress made on a reopening. It's good to see the teachers recognize the classified for being on site this whole time, taking care of the facilities. And it'll be good to see folks reoccupying the school district, and we're eagerly awaiting it, and we'll work with it and flex as it comes along. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Now we're to board comments. Paula.
Your mic's off, Paula. Your microphone's off.
Thank you. I don't have that much to say for a change. It seems like I was just here. Did I do it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay.
I just commented.
I know, didn't I? Anyway, but there are a couple of things. I really must say that I am pleased that the TK5 is gonna open up probably. I'm glad to hear most people are on board with that. I have similar concerns for the middle school at this point, the 6th grade, but we'll see how that goes. I also am especially happy that the sports and other activities that were really worked out according to my understanding of sports. And I'm real glad that those are all being practiced and worked on. And so that's a good thing. And then lastly, my big deal is that I really am hoping that everything will mesh well and we don't end up with any serious illnesses because of this. Oh, and by the way, I understand there is another vaccine thing tomorrow happening at the high school. And I'm especially glad that that's going on. Or is it Friday? It's either Thursday or Friday, but yay for that. I just think it's wonderful that the district has put out so much effort and energy in giving everyone the opportunity to take a vaccine.
Thanks,
Okay.
Paula.
You're welcome.
Jeannie, go ahead.
Had to unmute myself. I just want to say I deeply appreciate all the efforts on staff, both WTA and CSEA, for the past year, having to jump through all these hoops to do things differently. And then again, having to look at restarting things up again. I've been thinking back a lot lately. Who knew when we decided to not reopen in-person school for the school year, that we would have to jump through so many hoops to reopen. And anyway, I really appreciate everybody's efforts, and I know everybody's worked really hard. So, and we need to put the kids first.
Thanks, Jeannie. Robert.
I would also like to say thank you for all of you who have done such a great job of getting this done. I recall when I worked at the district level during the summer, I'd attend meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. By the end of the summer, it was like, why am I doing this job? I do not enjoy this. I do not like this a bit. And then as soon as that first kid stepped onto a campus and I saw the kid, and it made me realize, it just filled me up like, okay, this is why I'm doing it, and this is good. I've been doing some work for Middletown, and they recently opened up their schools in a hybrid model. Saw the same thing in those employees. As soon as we talked about the kids coming and them seeing the kids, their faces just lit up. So I'm so looking forward to having our kids back on campus. And I'm sure our teachers, our administrators, all our staff are going to light up as soon as those kids come back on, and we'll all say, this is why we do it. This is why we put in the work. So thank you all that made it happen.
Diane, unmute.
Yes, I know this is a bumpy agreement, but coming back for the first day of school, it feels like that. And I know how many teachers feel tense coming back, that once you see those kids smiling, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a big adjustment for everybody. And I want to thank all the teachers for being so flexible through this, starting back in March of last year and then coming back in September doing this. And right now, the ones that are coming back into the classroom and the ones that want to continue being online. Thank you for all the things that you're doing, and all the support staff as well. And CSEA, everything that you do to get the classrooms ready for all the safety that we need to keep this open for everybody, and the administration as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. I want to say thanks to the WTA leadership for all the hard work they put in to develop these MOUs. They were definitely focused on safety for everyone concerned, not just themselves, but also the students, staff, and the community at large. There's no question that what we're doing right now, it has some risk, but we're hoping that the vast majority of that risk has been mitigated. I've been in contact with the Mendocino County Health Department. I've noticed that there's a slight uptick in the positivity rate, or I should say the case rate, over the last 2 days. From March 3rd until 2 days ago, we were firmly in the yellow yellow tier as opposed to red or purple. We're not officially going to be in the red tier until the 15th, assuming we don't jump back into purple sometime between now and the 15th. So those numbers are all real good. In talking to the health department, they don't believe that there's any significance other than a statistical anomaly with respect to the last 2 days, but they're watching those numbers very closely, as are many of us. Once again, I think that we've done a really, really good job of putting a lot of safety procedures, protocols, and equipment in place to help everybody feel safe coming back to school. We've also spent some time on a couple of webinars with the state and their reopening plan and how the budget's going to be affected by that. There's some, I guess, probably some good news, if you will. If we get kids back into school, there's some additional COVID monies that will be available for helping get kids caught up as much as they reasonably can. Again, catching up for basically almost a year of lost learning is, for all intents and purposes, probably impossible, but there's at least a chance to mitigate as much of that as we reasonably can. And the state and the federal governments appear to be going to help supplement the budget to make some of those things possible. That's pretty much all I've got. Mark?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I appreciate that, Brian. We did a good job of working through the issues. I think Brian and I both know more about heating and cooling in our facility than we ever wanted to. We both realize that we got a long way to go to fix a lot of facilities. And the irony of our heating and cooling discussions is the best heating and cooling system we have in the district now resides in the 1929 high school building because of the bond issue. And so the real issue for us is trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work with old heating and cooling units and ventilations and all that stuff. We're trying to make it all fit together, and every building has a uniqueness to it. And so we worked through a lot of issues. I think we're in a good place. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to do some things wrong, but a lot of things right. And we got to focus on making sure we remember all the things we did right instead of the one or two things we did wrong. And I think we'll be fine in a reopening. I feel good about the staff. If you look at our numbers, about 82% of the staff or the teachers are vaccinated. So that's a good thing. That helps us with stability. Even if they would get sick, as Brian said, their chances of getting very sick or even worse are almost non-existent. So that's what I feel really good about, that I know that our staff is protected. I also know that our numbers we thought originally from parents were going to be maybe 50-50 if they want to come back or don't want to come back. That is certainly not the case. For example, there's only sixth graders who are going to stay on distance learning. They want to be back. There's a real passion for kids and parents, as I would be. I had 4 sons at home. My wife would have been going crazy with 4 boys at home, get them in school. But, you know, we have to do it the right way. And I think we've got our things in place. I want to talk about Marion I call her my testing czar. And she has a team of people she's training. We have 3 people trained on staff who are trainers of trainers now. And so we will have rapid testing, 15-minute, you know exactly what you got in 15 minutes, up and running early next week. And so we're going to go from site to site and invite any staff member who wants to get tested can get tested. It's not required. We only will test a student if they are symptomatic. So if they go to what we're going to call, kind of in a hospital vernacular, our ICU room, when they go there, we can test them if we have parental consent. We're not going to just test them without parental consent. But we can give the parent a test, and obviously if they were positive, we would recommend they go to their traditional doctor and get the rest of the story done. but we can do a rapid test, which will be really helpful. I do want to talk about CSEA's done a killer job. The one thing that COVID has really helped us with, our facilities are in as good a shape as they have ever been. On top of that is a bond issue helping us to do things. There's a new hallway in the high school main building. There's new carpet in the office. There's new carpet in the band room. The high school's going to have new windows on the main building. We did all the heating and cooling. The high school parking lot's going to get done. The turnaround's going to get done. The road back to the main building is going to get done. We're looking at all of our other buildings, including the high school, fixing all the roofs. So we'll have no roof issues. Because if we can't stop the water coming in, we're going to have a million problems. And so those are all on target, all on place, all going to fit within the funding we have, and will all be virtually done probably by June. One of the issues that we're looking at still is the west wing of Brookside. That project is way more money to do it big time and wonderful, you know, so we're having to look at options there. That's a tough place because it's up on a hill and ancient portables, but we'll have that figured out. We have a site plan that I think will work and get us through that. I want you to, if you go to Bechtel, I want you to look at the attention to detail at Bechtel in cleaning, gardens, painting, everything. Haiti, Hajic, I think is how you say her last name. She is phenomenal. I'm telling you, man, she is killing it during COVID, painting and fixing things. She's fixed and painted everything at that building. Our maintenance folks have actually put 2 science rooms into place at Bechtel. We have science labs, science tables, the sinks work, the drains work, the power works in the room. We have real science rooms there. We're now tearing apart the high school science rooms and doing the same thing. So all the sinks work, all the electric works, everything works. So I'm feeling good about the projects. The last thing we got to feel good about is we got to get kids back in the building. And so that's a real critical piece for us. We have some athletic teams starting, and that's going to be a good thing. But the last time we talked about how we got to get back in place. Hopefully we'll be read on Monday. That would be a good thing. It makes life a lot easier for everything. Our plans were all approved because what they do with the plans now is you submit them, and if 7 days they don't respond to you, you can consider them approved. So we've passed our 7 days on our submittal of our plans. So our plans are okay. We can post them and be okay. So we're in a pretty good position, and it's taken a lot of time to get here. And I believe, if I'm not correct, Brian, isn't Monday coming up? Isn't that the 1-year anniversary?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's been an entire year. Yeah, so, you know, everybody's put their 2 cents in and worked hard, and this is something, folks, we are never going to have 100% agreement on. When I go to Safeway, it's ping pong ball time. Like, don't ever go back in. You should have been back in 2 months ago. We hear all that stuff. Okay. But I think we're in a safe and reasonable place, and we've put in the time to be ready for kids. So that's something the board needs to talk about tonight, and we need to get that going. But I just want to thank a lot of folks because it took a long time to get here. And people have stepped up and took on unique jobs like Marion and Haiti and all these people who are doing different things. That's what we have to do. So I'm all set, Alex. You can move on.
Thank you, Mark. I think I'm there. Yep. We are at public comments for public comments on the consent agenda items. Anybody have any comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, like a motion to approve and a second on the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any board discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
aye.
Thank you. We are at item C, 13C, approval of resolution number 2020/21-11, conflict of interest.
That is an annual thing we need to do to verify that there's no conflicting interest or financial obligations or anything with anybody who is associated with management.
This is the conflict of interest form that the 700 form, the state 700 form, determines who has to be has to complete that form. So it is it's put in the form of a resolution. Like a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move to approve.
Second,
So a motion to approve and a second for resolution number 2020/21-11, conflict of interest. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the roll call vote. Robert?
Aye.
Jeannie?
aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
And myself, aye. And we are at item D, David, approval of school site reopening plan. Go ahead, Mark.
So I am assuming, because she always is, Maria's online as well, but she made some adjustments to her reopening plan in regards to schedule. And those things have been reflected in the plan. And Maria, do you want to tell them any significant things? I think the only real adjustment was what the schedule looked like. You're muted.
Okay, yes, it was just exactly 3 sentences that had to do with teachers that rearranged the master schedule. But in the plan itself, it just had to do with teachers teaching both distance and in-person instruction at the same time. And it was in about 3 different sentences in the plan. Otherwise, it's exact same plan. And it also has been approved by the state, correct?
That's correct. The areas you made changes in are not something the state or health department deal with. They don't deal with instructional methodology, just safety protocol.
Did
Maria,
anybody?
may I ask a question, Maria?
Yes, absolutely.
Maria, do you feel confident in the plan and beginning with your 6th grade on Monday?
I do. I absolutely feel confident. So our master schedule has changed because of the need to adjust to make sure that we were doing what teachers were needing. And we have, yes, it's true that we have major changes coming in on Monday. However, no, in my reality, I only received 3 emails from teachers concerned about starting on Monday. And 2 of them were not 6th grade teachers. Only 1 of them was a 6th grade teacher. And that is one of the teachers who has a new subject, which is PE. And I did put in place some support from Mr. Marati to be able to support that teacher in teaching PE. The other two teachers that are teaching something that they haven't taught before, is both of them are math, and both are, and the one also has PE, because we had to make self-contained classrooms in order to keep with the number of stable groups that there had to be at school. And so really the teachers are not teaching something that they haven't already taught at the grade level that they have taught it. They're just not teaching as many grade levels because they're now single grade level teachers. So I have 4 6th grade teachers in person on Monday, and only one of them is teaching a subject other than what they've taught before, and that's PE. Does that make sense? Our students have been given the safety protocols. Now, do they know them perfectly? Are they going to go for it? Obviously not. It's going to take reminders. We are starting school. We are starting school on Monday. And so it takes a week at least to be able to teach students the classroom norms, in this case, the safety protocols, plus doing your, community building activities that teachers do at the beginning of the school year. I mean, all of that is going to take a week at least, and then probably parts of other weeks. And so I feel like we can start with our 6th grade, bringing them back in person, and there still is time for our 7th and 8th grade teachers to, continue to plan and continue to put things in place for our return of our 7th and 8th grade. And that depends on, what tier we're in and all that kind of stuff. So.
Maria, are you going to be able to give any extra support for the one PE teacher that has concerns?
The 6th graders.
Yes, so that is a self-contained classroom. Well, both of my self-contained classrooms need to have PE. And Mr. Marati, who's our PE teacher, has offered to help support them. In other words, mainly give them what they need to teach for both of those classes, for both of those teachers, sorry.
Thank you, Maria, for all your hard work.
Yeah, and our teachers have been meeting, and they have been, it's not easy to redo pacing at this point, but they have been doing that. And they will need to start with their schedule change. Unfortunately, I can't just change 6th grade schedules. And when I change schedules, it affects the entire master schedule. And so everyone has to change a schedule, particularly because of the smaller contacts for stable groups. So that has to, when our 6th grade changes, and that's scheduled, I have told parents, parents are fully aware that their schedules will change on Monday in preparation for our return in person. I really don't see any reason to delay, knowing that our 7th and 8th grade will have some more time to continue to plan their return.
So before we go too far into that, I want to make sure that the board does the approval of the plan. If you want to talk about timing and stuff, can we deal with the plan? And then I want to throw out a sample for people to look at and debate and talk about. But let's do the plan first and then get to that issue.
And that's fine, Mark. I agree. We'll stay focused just on the plan, and we can talk about schedules and things like that secondary. So with respect to the plan, I'd like a motion and a second to approve the plan, and we'll continue discussion.
I move that we approve the plan for reopening Dr. Grove.
I second it.
Motion and seconded. Let's so again, like our special meeting, I'd like to stay focused on the plan itself. Is there any discussion specific to the plan, not scheduling? Go ahead, Donna, or go ahead, Paula.
My question about the plan. Now, the paper we received from Mark the part of the plan that we're discussing is strictly the dates, right? None of the rest of that paragraph that came below it.
We're
Correct.
not, that's,
We aren't even talking about that yet, Paula. We're just talking
Oh,
about Bechtel's reopening plan.
Reopening days or weeks.
That's not the other
No.
part of the note I sent you, Paula,
Yeah,
is not a board meeting discussion.
okay,
yeah,
and that's not the plan. You want the one that's all written up about how things will be cleaned and when they come to school and stuff like that, right?
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about
Okay.
Maria's Bechtel plan to reopen,
Right.
which
Oh,
we
okay.
didn't approve because she made some schedule changes based on our negotiations with WTA.
Oh, okay.
We
that was my only
completely
question.
redid Bechtel's schedule to be what Mark calls COVID friendly or
Mhm.
COVID worthy.
Well, yeah, right. And fits their MOU on how to open.
Yeah.
Okay, I had the two titles mixed up. Thank you. That's fine. I have nothing to discuss there.
Okay.
so I do have a question with respect to the plan, and it's not, all the elements that I see in the plan, and I've read the entire thing, seem very, very reasonable. The one thing that I don't see addressed in the plan is how does a problem that comes up that the plan hasn't dealt with, or how does that get resolved? I don't have a specific example, but I'm sure that the plan probably hasn't addressed 100% of the issues that may come up. But when an issue does come up, how does a teacher, for example, address that, something that comes up that's not covered in the plan?
Okay, so I guess I can tell you sort of a process that happens when other issues come up, because issues come up all the time, is that a teacher makes administrator aware of it. And most of the time I put together my leadership team for
Thank you, Maria.
what? Okay, for some discussion or input, and depending on if it's something that is, district wide, or if it's site specific, or that's sort of what, and we resolve it.
Okay. My assumption is if something like this happens, then somehow that information or the correction gets disseminated out to everybody that it might affect.
Yes, that it would affect everyone that would be affected, yes.
Okay.
And sometimes, Alex, you have to just rely on our first instinct is kid and adult safety. And so we have to deal with that immediately. And if we find a change in the plan, my guess is if there's a change in the plan with something we missed at Bechtel, we probably missed it at the other sites as well. And so we'll have to go through hey, if this happened at Bechtel, it could happen at Brookside.
And also it would have, 3 other districts would have missed it, because I used actually 3 other district plans, plus all the guidelines from CDC and the state health department and the federal health department. And yeah, so it wasn't like everything there isn't completely all new, thinking that I created.
Very good. Thank you.
Any
Any
other
other
have a question from Brian?
Brian, if you got a question, pipe in.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Maria. And I would like to restate something you said, Maria, that I think is true, that I think everybody should hear, board and community. I think that the plan as far as safety is a very sound plan. We have worked incredibly diligently to make sure that that is the case for staff and students, and therefore our community. So I would absolutely restate what you said about safety. I would remind the board that almost every district in the state of California is in some form submitting those plans. And so I wouldn't put a lot of weight on the fact that they're been checked at all. They probably just didn't have time to check them. So I would just caution you to use that as a really good data point, just because that reality that we didn't get them back doesn't mean that they were phenomenal. But I would also agree with Mark that I think from a safety point of view, we have done an incredible job. you brought up, or excuse me, Maria brought up that 3 people had sent her an email from the middle school. And I'd like to remind the board that the culture at the middle school has been a tenuous one historically. Last year, we had well over 50% new hires, and we have continuously cycled through teachers specifically at that site. When you're not a tenured teacher, you often have a limited ability to speak up for yourself, because ultimately you can be fired at will for any reason. And I will remind the board that the majority of the people at that site are untenured teachers. And so while Maria said she received 3 emails, our negotiating team received 9. And they are incredibly worried about the pace at which we are going back and the responsible way that we are going back. They're not worried about going back, period. They're worried about trying to do it between now and Monday. And they think it is professionally irresponsible to do so. So I just wanted to make sure that both sides of that story were stated tonight, because there are those people that don't feel confident reporting their needs and worries to their administrator because they don't feel like they've been heard correctly, or are fear for their job and their position. So I think that that is something that, as a district that wants to improve and increase teacher retention and respect the profession, I think it's very valuable to listen. And that's why I'm speaking for them as a tenured teacher. I'm more than happy to explain that it's important to be responsible and respectful of the profession, and therefore the ability to deliver a positive content to our students when they return. And I think that Maria brought up 1 week. 1 week in if we went from 52 weeks to 53 weeks in a pandemic, and the benefit from that 1 extra week was that we were ready and felt confident and safe. I think that is a very wise decision, and a week's time in the grand scheme of things for the health of our and sanity of our staff and students and community, I think is well worth it. So that's my response. And Maria, it does not have any effect on you as a person or a human. I think that you do an incredible job there, but it's important that both sides are heard. So thank you.
And before we go anywhere with that, would we please take care of the plan?
Yes.
Because we're talking about
That's my comment.
dates and reopening. Let's please take care of the plan first, and then I'll share my screen with some dates that we can get into that issue over. Okay?
Right now, Tony, do you have questions or specific information or specific comments about the plan? Not the dates, just the plan. Go ahead, Tony.
Specific to the plan, I know this plan kind of inside and out from being on the negotiations team and from just having been exposed to it as soon as it was initially brought out before the changes were made. And I think with regards specifically to the plan, it's great. I think it hits all the points that it's supposed to hit, and I support approving it.
Thank you. The one interesting thing about Zoom is the hand going up is pretty cool, but I haven't figured out how to get rid of it after it shows up. So if there's a way to do that so it doesn't stay up there, keep drawing my attention, I appreciate that.
But Alex, I think you ought to call the question on the plan.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Talk about timing.
So if there's any other discussion about the plan itself, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any more board discussion on the plan? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous? You're good.
Okay. So now, in conjunction with reopening, we had a lot of discussion about the 8th was the first time we could and what can we do. So let's talk about dates. Can everybody see what I have on this screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah, you should already be there.
So now I want to make sure that we see what I have up here and why I have this the way I do. Let me go through a quick explanation. K2 at Brookside, 3-5 at Blosser, Bechtel 6, Sherwood K8, Sanhedrin,
Right.
9-12.
And you're pulling the trailer, so that's, you probably shouldn't be going too much faster. So Not your usual highway speed.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know whose that is. I can't
Oh,
see
okay.
with my.
Hey, whoever's using
75
Linda's
probably.
phone, you're not muted.
I was thinking more like 90.
Okay, I don't want to have to unshare to do that, but,
They muted.
okay. So if you see what I have up in the plan there, I have a phased in sequence. Bear in mind, all of this is based on we continue to progress the way we are, trending red, moving towards yellow. Obviously, if we go deep purple, this stuff gets put on, the brakes get put on. The good news is all of these schedules can drop back into distance learning if we have to. And so this is a proposal that I'm putting out there for us to debate. I think that from what I hear, K5 is fairly solid. 6th grade is the question. I have some ideas for that if we want to talk about that. And the other ones are going to be based on Sanhedrin's already a lock. Their schedule's super easy. I met with them. They know what they're doing. Bechtel's schedule that they're doing with 6th grade is what they're going to do with 7 and 8. Sherwood, we just got near the end of the crunch. I'm not sure I can pull Sherwood on the 22nd, but there are only 3 people. So our ability to get together and work together is easier, and it's a very small environment with unique things to put in place. And then the high school, as we had talked about, 9th and 10th grade, students first. I know people want juniors and seniors to come back in. I think we should wait till the Monday after spring break. I put in here with independent study. As we have openings, and when we know we have openings, I can phase back in some of the independent studies where there are slots available. Independent study has 60 kids and they're at all different grade levels. There's like 7 3rd graders. I don't know if I have 7 spots in 3rd grade. I might only have 3. I might have 10. I don't know yet. But we got to get back in place to make that happen. So there it is, Alex. And so do you want me to leave this shared or do you want me to unshare?
No, we can back that out, Mark.
Okay.
I'd like to offer a suggestion though.
I didn't know it's right here.
Okay, whoever is calling from Paulina's phone, your volume is on. Sorry if I'm talking loud. I'm just hoping.
It's okay, Marion. I appreciate you being a policewoman.
Mark's been a spot where he can mute them again, I believe.
Oh yeah, you can, there you go.
So I have a suggestion with respect to 6th grade. I think I speak for the bulk of the board in that we agree that we need to get kids back in school as early as we reasonably can. We had some brief discussion about this particular date earlier. I think a compromise would be to, especially with information that Brian Bowles brought forward of teachers that are concerned about having their voices heard. They should not be. I don't care if you are a probationary employee or a tenured employee. If you are working within your contract, doing what you're supposed to do, there is absolutely nothing any of us have any interest in doing to affect your career here. It's just that simple. And this board is very strong on that issue. We would not support or allow any kind of retribution against anyone for simply doing their job and having an opinion. It's just not going to happen. Now, with respect to that, I would suggest that Maria and Mark and those teachers that are going to teach 6th grade have a Zoom meeting immediately as soon as they can, so that all of those people can express their issues. And if there is a legitimate issue that comes up that makes it difficult for anybody to start on Monday, then those things need to get worked out. And if we can provide the support to help them work through those issues, then we need to provide that support. If it turns out that that's not the case, then as far as I'm concerned, we need to move forward with opening school for K-6 on Monday. But I really think that everybody should work together and get their issues on the table so that they can actually work through this stuff.
So I want to make sure we're clear about one thing though, you can't take 6th grade separately from 7 and 8 because they're intertwined schedules. And so my advice is that the only thing that I would think that you would be able to do to pause that would be to use Monday and Tuesday as non-instructional days at Bechtel. 6-8, not just 6th grade, not just 7th and 8th. 6-8 would have to be non-instructional day, Monday and Tuesday, to get all their stuff in place, because the schedule is really intertwined with one another. And although we're only talking about 6th grade coming on campus, every teacher there is reassigned.
I understand.
It is, in my world, it's one piece. It's not 3 pieces.
I think like the rest of all of us would like to see as smooth a transition as possible back to classroom-based instruction. How that occurs is those mechanical pieces, the administration and WTA, you guys all share a part in making all that happen. And as a board member, I have to trust that you guys will manage to find a way to make that happen as seamlessly as you can.
And Alex, along those lines, could we hear from the other 2 principals that are looking to open on Monday about their readiness to start on Monday? I know we heard from the middle school, but it'd be nice to hear what both principals have to say at Brookside and Blosser.
Do we have them here? Is Nancy and Kathleen here?
Kathleen's on, and is Nancy? Yeah, Nancy's on.
Nancy's having a dance party is what's happening for Nancy.
Real quickly, Ms. McClellan, go right ahead.
Yeah, we are excited to come back. I have some concerns about the logistics because kids are going to be moved. There's going to be rosters changing. And obviously we need time to get our new rosters, set up our dojos, and let those kids know where they're going. So when they show up on Monday, they know what teacher they're going to. So I feel like and I don't even know what all the protocols are. So, so there needs to be some staff training as well, because maybe they're covering it in the morning mingles, but I'm already online teaching. So anyways, maybe Wednesday might be a better day for Blosser, but anyways, that's where I'm at.
Nancy?
So Dawn brings up the point that we don't know yet our distance learning teachers, so we won't know until Friday. So there is that, where we will have to notify parents who their distance learning teacher will be. And as soon as we know, we can share with them. We are doing what I'll call these sketch placements, but we haven't been able to notify anybody without any firm details. So that's, what I can tell you about. If we were to start Monday, that might be the hiccup.
Okay.
And Alex, I agree with what Nancy said about the scheduling, but in addition, we still have some things to take care of on site, like our, this sounds silly, but it's the dots that are being painted on our playground, and just logistical things like that, that I've been told will take place this week. So I'm looking forward to that, but yeah, the scheduling thing is the concern.
Okay. Any other hands up?
Conan's hands up, and Brian.
Conan?
Thank you for acknowledging me.
Conan McKay. I'm a resource teacher at Bechtel Grove. This is my second year at Bechtel. Yes, we want the students back, but as everybody else is saying, there are some logistical issues. Scheduling in terms of having students, if I'm going to be using iReady Math, will my students be in iReady? Now, will students be in, will we have FOSS, for science? There's some scheduling that by going on Monday can make it much more challenging. I like the idea of what Mr. Westerberg said is like with starting Wednesday, having 2 days on campus to be able to work out the logistics of how reopening exactly what happened. I can tell you that the teachers are looking forward to coming on campus. The teachers are looking forward to having our students and getting that back, getting that piece back. It's the logistical parts that are making it challenging.
Thank you.
Miss Munguia did a great job with the plan. The plan is excellent. It's the compressed timeline to be open by Monday. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Before I go to Brian, let's take care of Melissa.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Alex, for acknowledging me. I have very similar concerns. We are almost there, but we have some logistical things that we need to work out, including who's going to be in my class. So I have some spaces where that distance learning teacher is going to have to be transferring students. I need to know who they are. They need to know who I am. They are 7 and 8 years old. So there needs to be that little cushion. So we are excited. I mean, we cannot wait. That's all we've been talking about is having our kids in our class and what are we going to be doing and what is it going to look like and how excited we are. But we do need a little cushion. So I would ask the board to really consider not opening on Monday with students. We're just trying to figure out some last minute logistics and we need that little bit of time for that. I think that will decrease the initial chaos of the first day of school that we all know will exist, particularly with traffic at Brookside through that entire neighborhood. So, we're practicing those things and getting ready for that, but I can't stress enough. We need a little bit more, even if it's Wednesday, but that would give us enough time to reach out to those families so they know who they're going to, where they're going on campus. I mean, remember our kids are very young, including our kindergartners. So we just want to make sure that it's smooth and we're really ready and have all these little logistical things ready to go. So I'm really encouraging you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I'll keep mine short because everybody has basically reiterated exactly the point that I think the board needs to hear. And that is we have done a hell of a job with safety and we have got the plan in place, but we have not considered the actual time that we need to make it a productive and responsible opening. We're not trying to say start in June. We're trying to say, listen to us. We are the professionals that are going to be opening up this school. We are the professionals that are going to be opening up this school. And we do know, I hate to say it, much more about the opening of school and the first day of school than the board members, with the exception that have already been teachers. We're not asking for miles, we're asking for inches so that we can do a better job with and for our community. Thank you.
Chris.
Hi, thanks for acknowledging me. Chris Haynes, second year at Bechtel Grove. I'm sorry if this is out of place for me to ask this question. My concern about reopening is I just want to know if we do have an effective plan for subs. Assuming we do open on Monday, I'm going to need to be out on the 19th. That would be the Friday, the first week that we're back. So I just want to make sure we do have a plan for subs if we do open on Monday.
There is. We have a pool of subs that we're going to be able to use. Brian, are you okay with me? I sent you a chat message. Are we okay with that?
You're muted, Brian.
Yep, I'm not as good of a multitasker as some of my fellow teachers. Let me check the chat.
I thought you were a Zooming machine.
I've been on Zoom, as you know, for like 4 weeks straight. I wasn't sure when I went into your office whether I was still on Zoom or in reality. So
Yeah. I'm a solid C- on it.
So I think that is a reasonable thing. And a proposal from my point of view would be that, we're going to have every teacher that's going back, that's K-8 or K-6 at least, I guarantee you they're going to be in their weekend, in their classroom this weekend, right? There's no way they're not going to be. And that's true for eons. It's like the beginning of school all over again. I think that the reality of the nuts and bolts to get started will need at least 2 days to figure out on top of that weekend so that they can work professionally. So I think that at least the 2 days of Monday and Tuesday to allow that to occur would be a good place to start.
Brian, you want to use my proposal and just say it, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I sent Brian a chat because that's what you do when you Zoom. I think that if we make a decision, we need to get off the stick and stop talking and get doing. So my proposal is we not have students on Monday and Tuesday at all next week, K-6. Excuse me, yeah, K-6. And we have 7, 8, 7, 12 still do their thing. But K-6, no students Monday and Tuesday. We're back on site on Wednesday in K-6.
I would certainly support that if that's what needs to happen. But like the rest of the board, I feel like we need to get kids back in class, and we've been telling our teachers and CSEA, we've been telling everybody for literally a month now that we are moving this direction. So.
Brian, do I get a thumbs up on that?
I totally agree. I wanted to respond to Alex. And yes, Alex, you're right that everybody, I think, that has a pulse realizes that the train has been moving towards opening school. However, if you don't know where your seat is on the bus, right, you don't know where to get on the bus. And that's been the reality, especially for the middle school. Nobody knows where their seat is. And some of them still don't know. Some of them found out Tuesday. Some of them don't know what is going to happen on Monday, right? They're here at this board meeting. Some of them finding out for the first time that, oh my God, Monday is the day. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
well,
I agree with you, but you're not hearing the part about the minutia that has to happen.
Yeah,
And
well,
so
I am hearing,
and
it's being supported by Kathleen and Nancy, and of course your WTA position. I have no issue with that. I think that if the rest of the board feels similarly, we would leave this in the hands of our superintendent. And if that proposal to open on Wednesday with students and having no students on Monday and Tuesday to provide the necessary time for additional work to be done, I would support that.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what I came up with. Too.
Ask a question.
Certainly.
Mr. Westerberg, does that include K-6 and our special ed classes that will be returning in person?
Yeah, it has to be everybody. We can't train 2/3 of the people. I think in K-6, we need to slam the brakes on, use Monday, Tuesday. I know staff will be in on the weekend. It's just like before the start of any school year. There's always teachers here on Saturday and Sunday before Monday. And let's get ready to go. Let's take Monday and Tuesday. Let's take Monday and Tuesday with no students, no Zooming, none of that stuff. Let's get back on site and get ready to do business on Wednesday.
I have one more question with respect to that. How does that affect our instructional minutes, the number of days we have to be in school? Where does that impact us?
I'll deal with that. I'm sure, we're in a COVID world. I'm sure I'm going to get a free pass on something. And if I'm going to use the rationale, do you want us back in school? You want to throw money at us getting back in school. You can't throw time at us, okay? So ding me whatever you got to ding me, or understand that we're in a pandemic and we're trying to get back in, so let us get back in without playing rules all the time.
Thought I got was good.
And wouldn't it also be similar to what many other districts are doing where they're doing hybrid type arrangements with asynchronous learning
Yeah.
anyways, so that they're
Yeah, we'll be fine. You know what? I'll fight that battle. I don't care about, I care more that we get kids back in the building than the state, than dealing with the state with ADA in 180 days. We'll be okay. I'm pretty confident about that. If I explain the rationale and just get kids back in the building. We've got to get there, and we got to get there soon, and we got to have everybody on the boat. So K6, park it on Monday and Tuesday, come on in, let's get everything ready to roll. We will know our staffing Wednesday by 9 o'clock in the morning. I'll know the staffing for the distance learning folks. Most of the folks who I was expecting a letter from, we already got. I'm expecting 1 or 2 other folks, and we'll know our stuff. And it is playing out as the admins and I have talked about. We know our staff too, and we know their situations, and we've already kind of mentally scheduled that way. So I think we're going to be fine. The schedules aren't going to be as cumbersome as we might think, because I know Nancy, Kathy, and Maria have already been through every scenario of how to move and do stuff. So I think we can get it done between now and next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Paula, you had a comment?
Yes, I just am real pleased to hear that being the decision. I just really am. And I'm even ready to make a motion whenever you want one.
Well, it's not an action item, although, so we really can't do anything there. However, the board can express to the superintendent, because this is basically his decision.
Well, Superintendent, I think it's a wonderful decision if they come back on.
We would have been in March 16th last year.
Yeah, after
I'm
all.
just kidding.
That's worth an anniversary party. Hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Just one thing, and I may be speaking out of turn, so I apologize to middle school teachers if I am. But I think what I heard Maria say is that it is a 6-8 school site, and I think that we have teachers that are working distantly, and we have teachers that are working on site. And what I heard Maria say, and I think it's very important for this coming week, is that during those 2 days that we are allowing asynchronous work or whatever it is we're going to do on Monday, Tuesday, that all of the staff come to work on that day so that we can successfully put that together, unless they have outstanding COVID issues.
Brian.
Once that goes back to reality, they can go back to their other assignment locations. But I just want to put that out there because, Maria, I know that you've been working your tail off to make this happen, and I want everybody to know that we're in this and we want to be back in school. So
Brian, my proposal is Monday and Tuesday, there is no asynchronous, synchronous, anything.
That's right. Thank you. That's
There is no Monday, Tuesday instruction. We're going to use that with the understanding that our staff needs to come back in, get in place, get their rooms ready, get people rocking and rolling, get your schedules, get dojo set up, and let's go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had something I wanted to say, is that I want to remind Brian that 4 out of the 5 members of the board are retired educators or educators. So the vast majority of the board knows what it's like to reopen school or to start school at the beginning of a school year. And I also want to say that it's not all going to be lined up perfect in order to start. That's not going to happen. Ducks are not going to stay. They're not going to get in a row, and they're not going to stay in a row because ducks don't do that. So it needs to be the best that we can do. And but it's not going to be perfect. And we can't wait to start school until everything's perfect. So we just have to try to do our best on behalf of the kids. So.
Okay. So Mark, I think you got marching orders with respect to what you're going to do Monday, Tuesday.
Yep. And what it really does.
A parent that wants to comment.
Yeah.
Andrew Hoffer.
I can't see you really. I can see iPhone.
Let's go to Andrew first.
Okay.
Hi guys, thank you for taking the time, and I've been meaning to get on these calls for a while, and I just finally had the opening in my schedule with no conflict. So, and it sounds like I might be a little bit late to the party to kind of voice some of my concerns or whatnot from a parent's perspective, as well as an employer and Willits perspective. But I think it's important that we talk about it a little bit. From a parent's perspective, now I have younger children, but I've talked to a number of different parents that have children in mixed schools and mixed ages, and their biggest concern is, you know, some schools opening and some schools not, and I don't really understand the reasoning for not opening all the schools equally to make it that much easier on the parents. It's a huge burden on them to be able to or to not to have some schools, some kids in school and some kids not in school. On the employer's perspective, you know, I think the company I work for, we go above and beyond to support the family dynamic especially in this time of COVID. But it does add a significant amount of stress to parents that really want to stay at work and do their jobs, and try to balance some of the kids at home, some of the kids at school on mixed days, on different days. Some are going a few days a week, some are going more, and it just seems crazy that we wouldn't be opening everyone altogether. And I see that you have this. I see that you have this schedule. You know, I also want to make sure I don't discount the hard work that all the teachers and the Teachers Association has put into this. That's not the purpose of this discussion. And so, and I don't know if any other parents have spoken up about that concern, but I think it needs to be said. The other comment I have is, and it's going to sound a little bit brash, but that's okay. We've been out of school for almost a year, or maybe over a year. I'm not sure exactly when we left school. The Teachers Association, the school district, has had all of that time to prepare for what is coming. We've all known that we're going to go back to school, and as a parent, our expectation is that you guys have been working to be ready for that. And so when I hear that, you know, you guys are thinking Monday is the day, and then I hear, oh well, we're almost there. You know, I really appreciated Ms. King's comments about nothing's going to be perfect in the real world. Nothing is perfect. It's life, right? Life isn't fair. We do the best we can with what we have. And so as a parent, you know, I'm eager to get my children back into school to socialize with their friends, to be back with their teachers that they love. And I know that a lot of the teachers are as well. We just have to make the decision to do it. A lot of other communities have, in our county, in other counties across the state and across the nation. And it's time to make that happen in an equal and fair manner. I think that the best way to do that is to get everybody back in equally. And so if we're not ready, when are we going to be ready? That's the challenge. So I'll leave it at that. And if there's anybody else if you have any questions, I'd be happy to clarify anything I said and all that. But I just wanted to say something.
Andrew, let me address at least part of your concerns. The first one, why don't we open all the sites K-12 all at the same time? That one's actually a very easy one. We can't, simply because the health department will not allow us. We're simply we're in a window. Right now we're still in what's called the purple tier, if you will. And we are allowed, because of a waiver that we were given that allows us to open K-6. Anything beyond that, we're not allowed to open until we're in the red tier. We don't know for a fact that we'll be in red on Monday, but we hope we will be, and it's looking more and more like that's going to occur. Once we're in red, then we can start moving forward with opening those other sites. Opening in a phased approach is not a bad thing. It allows everybody to kind of get their ducks in a row, if you will. And the other thing is, you're right. Other school sites around the county have opened before us. And I've said this before, and I'll say it one more time. I don't want to be the first to reopen. I don't care if we're the last. And I'm only saying that from the standpoint of trying to be as responsible from a safety standpoint to all the people that we work with, all the kids that we deal with, and our community as a whole. We've been trying to be very diligent about getting all the safety protocols and equipment and procedures in place to make sure that we are as safe as we can be. This last piece with respect to, I believe the board is all but unanimous in wanting to get kids back in school as early as possible. And we would like to see them back in school on Monday. However, we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge our principals and our WTA and our teachers that simply say they need a little bit more time. Now, I don't want to delay this any longer than you do or anybody else that's affected by this. And I would argue that the rest of the board and the superintendent feel the same way. Until we were talking about this tonight, I think we were going to plan on opening on Monday. It's true. It's not going to be perfect. I guarantee you, even on Wednesday, it's not going to be perfect. But we do have to put trust in our administration to provide the best support that they can for all the people and get these classrooms open. Again, we have to rely and trust those people that they know what they're doing. And hopefully when it opens on Wednesday, it's the best that we can do. And I'm sorry if that's not a good enough explanation, but it's the best I can do at the moment. There was somebody else with a hand up. I believe Kelly has one.
Just in light of some of what particularly the elementary sites are continuing to work on with class lists. And I know for our special ed teachers, we have some students who will be in special ed classes on Zoom and in person with their regular teachers. I'm hoping, I know there's 80 folks in here, so many of you are parents, but I'd like us to clarify the way that the parents will be notified about who their child's teacher will be. Is that going to come from a principal? Is that going to come, and I just, having talked to a lot of our families who have kids with IEPs, but I know everybody is wondering, between the decision that's made tonight and when we have kids on our campuses, it sounds like Wednesday, how will parents receive the information? Kathy Crossman put out a really nice long Facebook post with all of that information. Will it be on our website? Just procedural things. And I don't know if this is a principal question or what, but I do know that would be helpful for people to know. How will I know what time my kid is going to start? How do I know who my student's teacher is going to be? And who will be notifying me about that?
I'd like to chime in.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
If it's okay. I would just like to say that we plan to send out a letter as soon as possible to let everybody know who, that's why we asked parents to update their addresses, but we want to send out a letter first thing tomorrow morning to people, letting them know who their teachers will be. So we have a plan in place. And also for those who are difficult to reach by mail, we will be doing some calling, and teachers can pass along information too once we have the class list. Actually, when I come to think about it now, we won't have that information tomorrow, will we? But we'll have it by the end of the week, who the teachers will be. So we'll send the letters out probably Friday.
Thank you, Kathy. That's exactly what I was hoping, that at least folks could hear kind of what I knew we had a process, but not everybody was sure what it was. So thanks, Kathy.
And if I can add, this is Nancy. I had said I have a Friday announcement that I share with parents, and I said that we would let them know on their parent portal, similar to, just because I didn't know how much time we'd have in between to let them know. So what we'll do is just like as when school first starts, they can check their parent portal that notifies them of what classroom assignment they have. And then we could follow up with a letter, but this way they'll know right away when we know.
Links and websites also.
Do you get feedback from the parents that let them, so that you know that information's been received?
Yes, we generally do, in that we get many phone calls to find out if they understood or they read it correctly. But we, just as Kathy described, we have been calling all of our families and checking their addresses and their contacts. So yes, and we'll follow up with a letter as well.
Alex, we have a parent who's been trying to get on. She doesn't have the hand gesture thing right, but yeah, can we have her go?
You also have a parent that's had their hand up for a while.
That's what I'm talking about. It just does iPhone, and then I keep losing her off my screen.
No, it's Tim has his hand up. He's had it raised for a while.
Okay.
So go ahead and chime in. I'm not seeing you on my screen.
This is Tim King. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut anybody off.
Go ahead, Tim.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Andrew said, and I couldn't agree more with him. This community has been very understanding and very patient with the teachers in the school district and wanting things to be done safely, but it's past due. I think we need to get into school ASAP. You know, from somebody who's been working this entire time, we've all had to do things on the fly. It's all unexpected. We just need to get it done, in my opinion.
Thank you. Was there someone else who wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, we have a parent who's trying to get on.
Unmute and speak up, please.
Where is she?
Okay.
I think the person who was trying to get on, her name is Delana. And I don't know if she...
Hello.
You're still out there? If you are, please speak up.
I don't see her picture anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Andrew, I don't disagree with you. We're not allowed to bring 712 back on campus until we are no longer purple. It's just, that's the state rule. That's the health department rule. We don't get a choice in that. But I will tell you, once we get our first group back in place, I'm going to be working with these people to get us back as quickly as we can. And there are some places that are super easy. I could open Sanhedrin Monday with no problem. Okay, because they have a very simplistic schedule and an easy way to do it. And so we're going to flip the cards as quickly as we can, but I sure hope we stay red for Monday because it'll make life a lot easier for everybody. When we're in purple, it really ties our hands. And I can't even explain hardly the difference between purple and red, but
I think most of us are surprised we weren't in the red, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago. We're going to be in it next week, and so that's fully understood. And I just feel like we should have been prepared. We should have been ready to be back because we all knew this was coming. And so to keep delaying it for even a few days at this point, it's just less time that the kids have with their teachers and with their friends and being in class in general, back to some level of normal, whatever that may be in the future.
I accept that. You know, our issue with red is you have to be in red for 14 days before you can become red. That's the problem. But, okay.
Our first red day was March 1st.
Do we have other people trying to get in?
Shalyn? Shaylin?
Shaylin.
The person who's using the computer that says Scott Matson on it, your volume is on.
Marion, I am hiring you as my Zoom policeman. You're awesome.
Okay,
Me too.
Thought I had a Shaylin out there that wanted to speak up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just have a question for maybe clarification that I don't understand. I hear that you're saying, or the school district is saying that they are governed by county rules or health department rules or state rules. So 7 through 12 cannot go back until whatever the stipulation is. Is that per city or per district? Because Ukiah High, for example, aren't they on week 2 of being back at the high school? So I just don't understand how it works. Is it broken down through these health departments by county? Is it broken down by state? Is it broken down by district? Because they're in the same tier we are, and their high school and I believe junior high are back.
Yeah, they are, this is by county. And so the rules are universal across the county. And I've been in contact with the principal at the high school in Ukiah just as early as last week, and they were not in session.
And they are doing a study hall type thing, which is not real school at the secondary level because they can't do a regular school setting. They're allowing some students to come in, but it's not a real school setting. But with everything we're seeing, if we can turn red on Monday, it'll change a whole lot of stuff for secondary. And it makes it simpler for us because we get out from under the thumb of the county health department and we can function. But again, our data's got to trend right, and we'll get back in as quickly as we can. I'm okay with Wednesday because we got to get back in. Whatever we need to do to get kids back in, we got to do. And it can't be 80% of us. It's got to be 100.
Okay. All right. Are we done with the topic on the date we're going back to school? Hannah Turner?
Put your hand up.
Hannah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just want to say really quickly, as a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, I have been seeing my kids since day 1 in person at 1-to-1, and as of Christmas break 2-to-1. I want nothing more than my kids to be back in my classroom. I want nothing more to then have a full class in my classroom. Just kind of reiterating what a lot of teachers have said, but hopefully giving parents some like peace in their mind that us teachers are working really hard and we want those kids back more than anything in the entire world. I can't tell you how devastated I was exactly a year ago to not see my kids anymore in person. So to get these 24 kids back that I can have in possibly less than a week is the most exciting thing I have had in a year. But those 2 extra days are going to be like Melissa Coughlin said, a cushion for us teachers to really set up and be prepared for those 12 or 15 so that we can have the best atmospheres for those kids. Because right now I see kids in person, but my classroom is set for 2 kids. My classroom is not set for 15. We just aren't prepared for that. So I really hope everyone understands that and takes into consideration that we really are doing our best. And as teachers, every single grade level, TK through 12th grade, we are working super hard to have our kids back and as quickly as we can and as feasible as it can be. That's what we want. And to make it, we don't want to have kids come back and it not be ready. That's my biggest worry. I don't want 5-year-olds coming to my classroom and me not be ready for 15 5-year-olds. I'm ready right as to when I left today at 4 o'clock, I'm ready for 2. I'm not ready for 15. So I hope parents and everyone understand that we are working and we are doing our best, and we want your kids back as much as you want your kids back in our classrooms. So that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shaylin?
Thank you. One last thing. I really appreciate the teacher's request to have those 2 extra days. I, as a parent and the daughter of a teacher who taught for 27 years, can completely
Because it's a public
respect
official
that
meeting, so it
extra
has to be
2
recorded.
days.
Make sure you're muted.
Yeah.
Hey, Maximilian, you're being recorded because your volume's on.
Thanks, Shaylin. Tim King?
I wasn't done. I'm sorry. I wasn't done.
Okay, go ahead.
What I want to say is, from many years spent helping in my mom's class, when there are changes, like these are big changes for kids. They're going from having to learn the younger kids having to learn how to use computers and get in meetings and out of meetings and go into all these different facets of classes online and figure out how to do this work independently, to going back to a classroom setting. A lot of these kids aren't even going to get their same teacher. Those are big structural changes. I have a student who depends on a structured routine. So I can appreciate and completely respect the request for the 2 extra days. So my son's current teacher has the ability to reach out to each parent and say, hey, your child's going to come back and they're going to be in, Miss Jones' class, or your child's going to come back and they're going to be in my class. And our day starts at this. We have a teacher this year who, this is very personal to her. She reaches out to each kid and each kid is treated like her own. And I know for a fact that is something she will do. Or, hey, you didn't fill out the survey, so we put you in distance learning. Here's your new teacher. Please look for an email or wait for a phone call or a text regarding how Monday is going to look for you. I get parents feel teachers should have been preparing for this all along, but I also completely understand they had to learn a whole new way to teach in nothing flat. Like they were given a few days notice and you're now teaching online. So they're doing a full curriculum online. I feel it's fair to give them those 2 extra days to transition. Like, okay, in kindergarten, your kids have a desk with your name on it. Special cubbies are made for each kid. These teachers want their room to be walk-inable and feel as though it is as normal as possible from before the COVID distance learning went into play. It's changed for everyone. I feel it's very respectful to let these teachers have that 2 days to contact new parents or whatnot.
Okay, well,
And
thank
that's
you.
all. That's all I have to say. That's my last 2 cents.
Appreciate it. Tim King.
So question, if the teachers need 2 extra days to prepare and the kids are going to miss 2 days of instruction, why don't we call off instruction tomorrow and Friday and give the teachers those 2 days, and then Monday's back on the table?
Probably the best one to answer that might be Mark, but I believe it has to do with getting all the schedules in place so that the teachers and everybody can make contact with all the parents, because those schedules won't be in place until I think, Friday?
Correct. Yeah, the biggest issue we have is we have to reassign some staff and students. And we have teachers who we have to get in place, and we can't do that Thursday and Friday. So it makes the most sense to use Monday, Tuesday, because as Brian said, and I know back from my teaching days, during the school year, Saturday and Sunday are not Saturday and Sunday. And so I'm assuming that if we have these 4 interrupted days, we're going to be in a better position to rock and roll and get done. And we will be the 3rd public school in the county to be in place with kids. The other 6 are not. And so only Ukiah and Fort Bragg are in right now. And so, again, it's never fast enough. I think most folks who have talked to me, I was ready a long time ago, but like I said, it's got to be 100%. It can't be 75 or 80. I think it's a good question, Kim, but I think the logistics make it simpler to do it because once I do that, I got to put bus drivers in place too. So everybody's got a schedule to get done. And now we've set a definite timeline. Let's get it done. I'm not going to have to push the lever because everybody knows where the starting is going to take place.
So, Relania? I've got multiple hands up.
So I would just like to quickly address the comments that I've heard people have about the time that I'll send a message to someone else because my internet's not very good. I'll send a message to someone else to speak up on my behalf.
You sound fine.
Okay, somebody's on there with the iPhone.
Okay.
Yes, can
you hear me now, Jeannie?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to address the 2 days that we're requesting because I hear some public comments regarding those days. And it's been mentioned that it's a cushion. It's not really a cushion, it's a necessity. I've been teaching for 22 years and it takes me a couple of weeks before school starts to get ready for the year. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that we have to prepare for our new students, but we also need time for closure with our current students. I'm losing either way, whether I'm a classroom teacher starting next week or an online teacher next week, I'm going to be losing about half of my class. And so we need that time together to have some closure and then time to prepare. And as been mentioned, I don't know yet, neither do any of the other teachers at my site, if we are going to be an in-person teacher or an online teacher, and I don't have a class list yet. So we need that time. It's not just a cushion, it's a necessity. And so I really want for the public that's listening to hear that and the board.
Thank you. I have one individual out there without a name, but it just says iPhone. Go ahead and unmute. That's you. Yeah, I see your hand waving. Unmute. You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Now I'm very confused because I definitely hear what the last woman just spoke for, as she is a teacher of so long. I am a mother of a Sherwood School student, and they potentially, is what I heard, is they are going to start like a week or two potentially after the school, like Sherwood and Bethel are going to be starting again. Now
So
what is my question? Because now I just
so right now,
why are they starting behind? And because I know that there's only 3 teachers there, why are they going to be starting behind, and what are we looking at following through with?
I'll answer that one.
Go ahead.
Sherwood has very unique issues with only 3 buildings, 3 teachers. I'm going to be up there setting up tents so we have outside spaces. I have to make sure I have some administrative coverage there. We're in the middle of transitioning between a secretary on leave and somebody I'm stealing from Brookside. And so we have some issues at Sherwood I still haven't worked through. It doesn't mean we haven't talked and we're not ready. I think all 3 teachers have a pretty good idea of what we're going to do. But again, I have to be their administrator and the superintendent at the same time. I got to make sure we open up downtown before I can take care of Sherwood. It just happens because I happen to be their admin and they're a unique setup. And so that's why I want to pause for a week on them.
So the tentative date for opening Sherwood is March 22nd.
Yeah. And again, providing
So potentially could I physically help you, not with like the school administrative part of it, but just like physically helping, like dig pots and holes or whatever that like you need to do to set up the school?
Yeah.
Would that help to set up the school? Because I know that there's a lot of parents that would help to set up the school.
Right.
To get it going so you could do the part that you can do, but we could help that part.
Yeah, I am gonna call out to some parents. I'm gonna try and use Trevor to do that, who does Fosse, because there's some site things we have to do. We got to put up some tents. I need some help. The problem is, remember, we have the same requirements where I can't have 40 parents on site. But and the teachers are anxious to get back in as well. And we will get Sherwood up and operational as quickly as possible. But their issues are unique compared to the other schools. But I think we have a good plan. I want to meet with them and lock it in and get everything done. And there is going to be some need for help. I can't be up there for 2 days straight with everything else going on.
So just a couple more comments here, and then I want to move forward on the agenda. Dan, you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I think it's important that the public know that these mind-boggling rules that we have just to open up to get kids in class, they go through the entire structure of the school district. Not only do they affect the teachers in the class, they affect how the kids get to school, how the kids get home from school, how transportation can run, how many people can be in vans and buses. All of these things are going to be altered and different from the norm that anybody is used to. So the learning curve is all aspects of the school life, not just getting the kid back in the classroom. And patience is going to be needed on all those fronts.
Very, very true. Thank you, Dan. I know that Relania and Shaylin had their hands up. I don't know if you guys had turned off your hands earlier or not, but I'd like to move forward with the agenda unless somebody else has a comment they need to kick out there. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move forward.
This is the exciting part of the meeting.
Yeah.
Nikki's here. Let's talk budget and numbers. Awesome.
Yes, I can't wait. We're looking for approval of the 2020/21 second interim budget report. Take it away, Nikki.
Mark, would you like to set it up so that I can screen share?
Maybe. So one of the things that Nikki's going to do is show you our current position, and she will be the first to tell you, but I'll steal a little bit of her thunder. To be real honest with you, we know where we're at today. We don't know where we're going to be at the end of June. There are multiple things happening with a stimulus that just got passed that Biden's going to sign Friday. There's reopening dollars that Newsom has thrown out on the table. And how many do we qualify? Do we qualify? All that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of wild cards still left out. But what I want you to know is the good news is we were very fiscally responsible back last year when we set this year's budget. We made the right reductions. We made the right changes to put us in a good position. And so our financial position on this is even better than where we had projected at the start. Now, again, we don't know where we're going with some other financial pieces, but we are not off kilter at all. We're better than we hoped we were going to be a little bit, but we're not worried at all. We're in good financial position as a district. Nikki's doing a phenomenal job of sorting out between, I can't even count the number of revenue sources we have. I always am asking her, can we spend money to do this with this revenue? Can we not do this with this revenue? It's super complicated right now. Everybody's throwing a dollar, but they're all earmarking every one of them. So we have a lot of work to do to sort that out, but we will take care of it. And the good news is we're better than we were in the fall. And I think as the year goes on, we'll trend better.
Thanks, Mark. Go ahead, Nikki.
Let's see here. Let's pull up the multi-year projection first. Okay, so is everybody seeing that now?
Yep.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to point out is in regards to the bulk of our revenue, which is the LCFF revenue. And one thing that I want to remind everyone is that we are in a hold harmless status this year. This is the funding that is driven by our ADA. And our enrollment is down this year from last year. However, because of the COVID situation, the state has declared that all school districts, our ADA will be held harmless against our last year's ADA, and that is then the revenue level we will be funded at. This is positive for us because it helps protect us from some of the impacts of these enrollment changes that have occurred. Now, in terms of how I'm projecting in the second and third year of the multi-year projection, I'm remaining conservative because it's very difficult for us to know what the enrollment trends will look like as we move into on-site learning and as we go into the next school year. We don't know 100% how much of our enrollment changes are due just to families trying to find different solutions for themselves during this situation. So I am hopeful that as we go into those 2 years that we would see some improvement as well in that revenue. But I think that we, due to the level of uncertainty, we really need to remain cautious in our planning for that. In addition, you will also see some changes in regards to the revenue. I'm going to scroll down really quick so don't get motion sick. Into the restricted side of our budget, you'll see that we have more state and federal revenues than we typically would. And so you can see where there's a big drop off going into that second year. And so I just want to remind everyone that what we're dealing with is a significant amount of one-time funds related to COVID. And as Mark said, it's been a pretty big task trying to track them. They have split it into a lot of different pots and tied different rules to them. And so we're really doing our best to crosswalk any positions that we have tied to those one-time funds and account for them properly as we go out into the 2 years where we no longer have those one-time funds. And I also want to clarify which funds we're currently seeing included in this projection in our budget. So as Mark mentioned, things are developing rapidly at the state and federal level when it comes to these funding sources. And so what we have now currently included is the federal ESSER1 funds. They are expecting that we will also be funded for ESSER2, and I am hearing through the grapevine potentially even ESSER3. Neither 2 or 3 from the federal ESSER funds are included here yet, so just ESSER1. We also had the learning loss mitigation funds that we've talked pretty significantly about throughout this year are included, but we also have some other things happening at the state level. As many of you have already heard, there is the return to school incentive funding, as well as what they're calling learning expansion funding. And those two are very new and have just been approved, I think, within the last week or two at the state level. And so we do not yet have those funds incorporated here. A lot of those funds will require us to have an approved plan. I believe it's by June 1st. So I anticipate when we do our budget adoption that we will be seeing those incorporated and have a lot more information about it at that point. The other thing that I want to point out is that, as Mark mentioned, as we came into this year, we were being told by the state we would be experiencing a $1.5 million funding reduction. And in preparation for that, we did try to make some decisions about how to manage our expenses coming into this year. And so there are some programs that we have discussed trying to get started again going into next year. And so in anticipation of that, there are some additional FTEs included in 21-22 and 22-23. And 3 of those are things that were things that we have had in the last couple of years. So 2 EL positions and 1 intervention position. We don't know exactly what all of that will look like programmatically yet, but in terms of budgeting, we know that there's going to be a need to address some of these things. And so we have included 3 FTE planning for that. In addition, we currently have a CTE position that is actually funded directly through our county office, some ROP funds. That program ends at the end of this year. And so we incorporate that additional FTE into our budget going into next year as well. So those are really the main changes that have occurred. We again have a pretty significant expenditure that is going into offsetting our food service program. So right now we're just shy of 600,000. And, you know, our food service department has worked really, really hard to do outreach with our families and to get food into the hands of kids. But, you know, when kids are not on campus every day, we are seeing that impact the participation rates. I am hoping that as we go into next year and we're on campus, that we'll see the revenues revitalize in that program. So we are anticipating having a smaller transfer into that program. In addition, we are going to be exploring to see what kind of options we have with COVID funds coming in to help support the food service program, because that's been a huge part of our COVID operations, really, is trying to continue supporting the nutrition needs of our students. So we're hoping that we may be able to support that with some COVID funds. Mark, is there anything else that you feel like we need to hit on that has not been brought up yet?
No, just the fact that we did get every dime and spent every dime of the money we had to in time. We're not sending anything back.
Right, we had a hard deadline at the end of December, and that was for the bulk of the learning loss mitigation funds. There was pretty significant reporting that was involved in that and budget management, and we got that nailed down and all the reporting in for that. So we feel confident that we'll be hanging on to all of the funding related to that.
And the other thing is that we have resolved our cash flow issues. We should not have a cash flow issue.
Thank you. That's a really good point. Okay, so I also
scroll down.
Paula, did you say scroll down? Is there something you wanted to see?
Could you please? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I
that's
forgot
okay.
I was turned on.
I was about to go to a different screen share, so let's look at this one before we go.
Could you just scoot it down a little closer to the bottom?
Sure.
Oh, there it is. The 684. That is the. Let's see.
This is assigned.
Isn't that the? Oh, okay. My mistake. I thought we were. I was looking at the 3% that we're supposed to have for the state, and then it's greater than that. The reserve for economic uncertainties and the unassigned unappropriate.
Right.
And
so
then,
I'll break. Do you want me just to do a quick review on the components of our fund balance?
If you would, those 4 that come up to the 4 million, whatever, I can't see it anymore. Hold on. Thanks.
So you are right. The state has a minimum required reserve for economic uncertainty of 3%. And our practice has been to show a 6% in our budget. We typically have had unassigned over and above that, which I believe is the appropriate way to budget. If we listen to the various fiscal agencies, the folks that advise us on good practices, 2 months of operating expenditures is typically what they recommend, which is about 17%. And so to be very honest, I would not be comfortable bringing us down to a 3% at, you know, in terms of trying to keep going with utility payments, salary payments, things like that would be very, I think a little dicey. So what we show is 6%. We typically have various things that are assigned in our fund balance. And so these are things that are, although they sit on the unrestricted side, they are still associated with particular programs. So things like our lottery funding and our supplemental concentration grant funding. And I am glad you mentioned this because I did want to point out, as I was finishing my multi-year projection last night, and these were the last two fields, the assigned for the 2 out-year projections, my software shut down and had a malfunction, and I was not able to pull some of the data I wanted to look at in terms of evaluating what comprises this piece in order to make a good judgment as to which ones would still be included. So that 500,000 and 400,000 are my best guesstimate without having the details in front of me. Those are not hard and fast, but the 684 is primarily supplemental concentration grant, lottery, and some MAW funds. We are going into a new LCAP year. So I think we'll see changes on that anyways as we go into our adopted budget for next year, because we will be doing, you know, a whole new LCAP that covers the next 3 years. And at that point, Mark and I will really try and make sure that we have all of our supplemental concentration grant funding allocated out to uses that we want it to go to. And so then the unassigned piece is really the total fund balance minus this small amount that we hold in a revolving fund, minus assigned, minus the reserve leaves. This is what's unassigned out of that fund balance. So in the current year, we are in surplus, but I mentioned earlier that part of that is because we're actually getting funded for students we don't currently have. So we feel the effects of that just this 1 year. And then we go into the 2 out years. And as we've added FTE and other expenditures for those years, we can see that unless other factors change, we would be in a deficit spending position.
Okay, so can you, I mean, I have always been of the belief that the 3rd year out is ridiculous because it never happens. Is that an attitude you share or that you don't agree with?
It's not an attitude I share. What I agree with is that you're right, it won't happen because it is a snapshot of our current assumptions. And we know that the reason we do this is to look at what would happen if we changed nothing and continued down that path based on our current assumptions. And the very purpose of doing this is to allow us to make any necessary course corrections that would prevent that from happening. So while I agree with you that any given year, there's so many variables that are impossible to lock into place. It's impossible to know exactly what your maintenance costs will happen. You know, you have unexpected things that will occur. Will someone be out on leave and therefore you need sub costs? There are variables that you must leave room for. So yes, it will never be to the penny exact. And we know the farther you go out, the more true that is, right? But
yeah.
But what I do believe is that it's an absolutely critical planning tool to allow us to lay out the picture of here's what we currently know, here's what we're planning to do, here's what we believe the state will fund us at. And based on those assumptions, this is where that is leading. And we have worked very hard over the last several years to really, truly use it in that way. Because if you're looking out farther, you're less likely to have to turn on a dime and make sudden reductions. It allows us to focus on making more natural staffing changes when there are vacancies. So in other words, there's a vacancy, we can evaluate what's our next step? Do we want to fill it? How do we want it to look? Rather than having to do layoffs when there are people actually attached to positions and it has a much more dramatic impact to our staff and our community. And so I firmly believe that doing the multi-year projection has a lot of value. It allows us to really be strategic and intentional in how we move forward.
But our district still doesn't include any of the retiree people that collect retirement monies and then no longer will or whatever, right? We don't calculate any of that. It's just a straightforward, this is what happens if the same 400 people are being retired and confused with their money.
Depending on what I know, in some years we know more than others, right? There's times where somebody does let us know early in the year that they intend to retire. Other times they wait till closer to the end of the year, and it's a little harder to know. But for instance, in the multi-year projection on the unrestricted side, for both 21-22 and 22-23, I did plan for $20,000 each of those years in retirement savings. So in other words, we do show step in column, knowing the person who remains with us will move on the salary schedule, but knowing that district our size, it's very likely we would have some turnover, which could result in higher paid employees leaving and lower paid employees entering the salary schedule.
Right.
So I do incorporate some savings in our.
Oh, okay. Yes. And then lastly, it hasn't changed, or has it, that like this year our enrollment is down, right? But
Correct.
We get the money we got last year. Next year, we'll have we budget on our small enrollment, but if the enrollment is high, we get it. Isn't that the benefit, so to speak? That hasn't changed, has it?
So you are correct. And you'll see that when we look at the LCFF, now keep in mind that the two main factors here is that you're dealing with both the ADA level, but you're also dealing with COLA. So if there are COLA changes, that can influence the number. And we are seeing that the current state projections are for a COLA to exist in both the second and third year. And yet you'll see we go up a tiny bit to account for that COLA, and then it drops back down. And how does it drop back down if we have a COLA? And it's because we kind of leave the safety of that cocoon that you are talking about. So what happened is we actually kind of extended the effect of that this year because of the fact that they held us harmless last year. So in a sense, we actually will be funded next year at the same ADA level as we were in 1920 because they held us harmless 1 year. And then next year we get to use that current year or prior year. And the prior year is 2021, in which they're looking back already. So it kind of pushes it out an extra year this time. And then you can see it drops back down here as that sort of lower ADA catches up to us at that point.
Okay.
A couple things, Paula.
Oh, okay.
One is that remember that STRS and PERS are increasing in those next 2 years.
Okay, they didn't stop or freeze or whatever it was?
No. So actually going into the two next years, both PERS is going up both years. There's a very tiny reduction temporarily in STRS next year, but it's 0.23%. It's almost neutral to us. And the PERS amount far exceeds, the increase of the PERS far exceeds that. And then they both go up in the third year. So yeah, they're still on track for increasing that. We're going to be, by the time we hit 22-23, we're going to be at a point where when you incorporate PERS and then all of the other statutory benefits, so OASDI and Medicare and all of these pieces, we're going to be paying 38.4%, I believe, on our classified salaries. And I believe high 20s on our certificated salaries. So
that's contrary
really,
to what I had read. Thanks.
It's gone up quite a bit.
The other thing, Paula, is at the end of the year, what you're going to want to see is next year's projection to not be negative, but to be positive. And that's what Lindsay and I will be working on, is the next time we do budget at the end of the year, we're hoping that based on what we do, you won't see a negative for 21-22. You'll see a positive.
Right.
Oh,
That
okay.
would be the goal. We would like to not be in a deficit spending mode.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know
Oh,
if
okay.
you guys have an interest in actually looking at the entire cash flow projection. I can just tell you that, as Mark mentioned, it's a very good point, because that was actually a huge part of our picture for a lot of the year, was having concern over our cash flows, and the state was going to be doing massive deferrals. Now they are still doing some deferrals. They're not quite to the level we thought. And in combination with being in a better position than we had anticipated, we are not going to need to borrow any funding. We don't anticipate having any negative cash positions during this fiscal year. And which is good. We had been doing the legwork to do what they call a tax revenue anticipation note, which is basically a loan against our next year's tax revenue in order to cover cash flows and paychecks if needed, but it did not turn out that we needed to do that. So our own fund balance has allowed us to kind of ride the wave of those cash deferrals.
Okay.
Oh, the last piece I am obligated to share with you all. New share. Hang on just one moment. Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. Sorry, apologies. It took me a moment there. We are required to discuss in particular detail regarding our reserves. And this, I think, is a restatement of what Paul and I just discussed. So this breaks down those different components of our ending fund balances, and then discusses the many economic factors and planning factors of why we would hold more than the state's 3%. And as I said, I truly believe it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to maintain a fund balance of only 3%. We're extremely grateful and to the community for passing the school bond that's going to allow us to take care of some really critical infrastructure projects. But if that had not passed, we would have pending maintenance and facilities issues that would take a lot of resources to deal with. And so, it's really important that we be always aware of these factors. So it's things like maintenance and facilities, technology replenishment. We tend to get these one-time funds from the state, and we use them for things that are, what we call one time. But as we know, when you have technology deployed, it becomes part of the program. And at that point, you have to maintain that across time. It really doesn't end up being one time in terms of a financial commitment. So things like that, vehicle replacements, protecting our cash flows, and just weathering the economic storms that we're in. At any given time, we don't know when these types of things happen, whether the state will in fact cut our funding and leave us in a bad position. And I think it's always better for us and for our community when we have time to respond thoughtfully and intentionally to do the right changes, instead of having to really react suddenly to bring a budget in line. So
just as a reminder, for an example, the 3%, the 660,000, payroll is $1 million. So if we got deferred for a month, that
right.
3%
It doesn't even cover one payroll.
Doesn't even cover. That's not heating and bills that month. That's just payroll.
Right. The other thing that happens with that reserve is that, in and of itself, the state required amount, if you were to ever dip into that, not only are you in fairly dire straits, but you have to turn around and replenish that because you're legally required to hold a reserve. So if you use it, then you almost have the double impact the following year of having to catch yourself back up and replenish it. So, that the state required piece, I really think is like kind of a hands-off situation unless things were absolutely dire.
Yeah. If your cash flow if that reserve is not about $2 million at the absolute minimum, you're in trouble you're going to hit cash flow problems, or if you get deferred a month, you have a big issue. So, okay. Anything else, Nikki?
Not that I can think of, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has them.
I just wanted to thank Nikki. I have such admiration for her. She's deals with all those numbers, drive me nuts. And she comes across as just really having a good grasp of it, and she communicates well, and she cares about communicating. And I just wanted to say I appreciate her very much.
Thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate hearing that.
I appreciate when she goes, "You want to do what?" It lives with that.
Keep doing that, Nikki. Keeps him on his. Thank you very much for your report, Nikki. We would entertain a motion and a second to approve the second interim budget.
Also move.
A second?
I can second it. I do.
Paula beat the buzzer with her sound.
Finally.
So do we have any further board discussion on the budget? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And now we're at item F, approval of the 2020/21 audit report.
So I actually had that just in case that the auditors had the audit report done early for us, and they don't. Typically the audit report is actually due to the state in December, and because of the COVID situation, the state has extended the deadline to March 31st. And so they are still working on the audit report in order to get that submitted to the state. So we will have that at the April meeting.
Okay, so it's required to be in by the 31st. Is it necessary?
Correct, but you guys are not required to approve. So typically what happens is it gets, like on a normal schedule, it gets submitted to the state in December, and then it must be reviewed at a public meeting by the end of January. So it just gets reviewed after the fact. It's not like you guys need to approve it prior to submission to the state.
Got it, thank you. I'm going to jump ahead to item 15, public comments for items not on the agenda.
Excuse me, is this still Christy White company, who's doing it? Oh, okay.
Yes, it is Christy White and Associates.
Okay, thanks.
So for public comments for items not on the agenda, does anybody have anything? Okay, hearing none, I've got two items for our next meeting. I'll start with one. There's lots of evidence out there that studies, reports, evidence suggests that if our kids are reading at grade level when they exit grade 3, they are in a good position for success moving forward. I would be interested in finding out if there's board support for directing our administration to look into whatever programs are necessary to make sure that the highest percentage of our kids can be at grade level in reading as they exit grade 3, whether it's additional teachers, additional paras, tutors, after-school programs, whatever best practices are out there to help make sure that at least through grade 3, we have our kids at grade level. I'd entertain any comments.
It'll be never more important than it is coming up. This year off has been a killer.
Well, I think also because we have an opportunity with funding from the COVID side, it may make a difference. And in my mind, if we have everybody at grade 3 at the end of next year, it'll still be 6 years before the high school sees the benefit of that program. But we have to start somewhere. And in my way of thinking, if your reading skills are good, then almost every other element of education kind of falls into place. you're going to be better able to understand and read your history. You're better able to understand and read your math. Every other element of education seems to hinge on whether or not you have a strong foundation in your reading skills, and whether that's EL students or just your regular students that don't have that are naturally English speakers. It's all the same. I still think that if we can find a way to make sure every one of our students has a sound foundation in reading as they exit grade 3, we've set them up for success. I don't know how you could possibly do that at every grade level now to try and catch kids up, but I think we need to set a foundation at some point and move forward with it. And I'd be interested in finding out whether there's board support for pushing forward for a program such as that.
It certainly has my support. I have to tell you a story about my son. When he was we had him at St. Mary's in kindergarten through 2nd, because my husband's Catholic and he wanted to give that a try. And my son wasn't reading very well in the 2nd grade, and they noticed that he was covering one eye when he was reading. And they sent us had us go to a vision specialist in Petaluma, who figured out that Tim he didn't have an acuity problem, but he had a tracking problem, is that his eyes weren't tracking together. So he was covering one eye when he was reading. Anyway, we moved him up to, he went to vision therapy for about a year weekly. And anyway, we brought him up here for the 3rd grade, and he was behind in reading, though his vision problems had been remediated. And at Blosser at the time, they had a Title I teacher. And the Title I teacher took Tim, I can't remember if it was one-on-one or a small group or whatever, but by the time Tim exited the 3rd grade, he was reading fine. And he ended up going the rest of the way through Willits Unified School District, and ended up in advanced placement classes at the high school and on to a 4-year college. So anyway, it makes a difference that if that Title I position hadn't been available, filled with a teacher who cared and who gave him the attention with his reading problems, he might never have gotten caught up. So anyway, I just wanted to give that experience to you from my own life.
Thanks, Jeannie. I mean, there are a number of success stories where kids have gotten that one-on-one support. I know of one, a kid that had fallen through the cracks multiple times over multiple years. Our superintendent took him under his wing, got the support that kid needed, and now he's doing far, far, far better. But I know that there are other kids out there, many other kids that have fallen through the cracks, and we need to find a way to make sure that just simply doesn't occur. I think reading is probably one of the most, it's one of the most important elements that we can make sure our kids have a strong foundation in. So, and whether it's hiring more tutors, whether it's hiring more paraprofessionals, whether it's bringing in more volunteers to help kids learn to read, I'm open to whatever it takes to find a way to make sure a program like this gets off the ground and stays functional, and has the appropriate testing to make sure that our kids are evaluated on a regular basis, so that they do actually leave 3rd grade prepared. So.
Well, Alex, I would start with talking with Kathleen and with some of her lead teachers, because before we went on the pandemic, they were making a lot of progress in exactly what you're talking about. So I'm going to kind of speak for them. I'm sure they would love to have more support, and that is definitely one of their goals, to have everybody reading at grade level. So I think that would be a great team project.
And just to chime in, Alex, the majority of states have a actual legal obligation that districts have kids at grade level at 3rd grade. For example, where I came from in Michigan, it's a mandatory requirement. And if you're not at grade level, you have to go to summer school. They remediate students. It is a state mandate to report 3rd grade reading level and to remedy those situations, with the exception of students who are learning disabled. And so we don't have to start from scratch. There's a lot of good models out there on how to do it. And you're right, the COVID funding will allow us to take a look at some of that stuff. And this goes part and parcel with the EL issue, because obviously that's part of our reading problem as well. And so those two are married together.
Well, not very long ago, Mark, you sent out an email to the board that listed all of the positions that had gone by the wayside, if you will. They had not been filled as a result of, partly the COVID, partly the budget constraints that were anticipated through the state last spring at this time. And you asked the board to give you our assessment of which of those positions should be filled first. And I think almost all of us said the EL positions were first. I know that other board members here had other ideas how to fill those remaining slots. My position was I would leave all those other slots to your best judgment in terms of what's the best way to fill those. I would take back that recommendation today and suggest that we need to we need to find ways to spend some of those monies, possibly some of those PE paraprofessionals, instead of hiring back those individuals, hiring back, more support for K3 reading. I don't know if that's practical or even possible, but I'd like to explore those kinds of options.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Can I put in my 2 cents?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you're going to improve instruction, if you're going to reach that goal and you identify it, it's a very complex operation to make that happen. You really got to focus on the primary instruction. You got to enable those teachers to be able to teach at their best. That's where your support has to go. That first primary instruction. You do not have that in, I don't care what kind of intervention you put in, it's not going to work on the back end. You've got to get teachers teaching as well as they can and support it as much as they can. Secondly, you do have to have a response to intervention, something that identifies those kids quick, intervenes quick, and then gets them back into the regular classroom and instruction. But that's complex in itself. You also have to have an accelerated type ELD program that does not deny those English learners the academic knowledge that they need. You also have to have a progressive SPED program that also does that, works with the kids, gets them back into the classroom, into regular ed. You have to have a good professional learning community that is data driven. You have to have groups of teachers that work together, put their heads together and come up with solutions. And with all this, you have to have assessments so you know if you're progressing or not. You've got to have different types of assessments, not extensive assessments. Many of them are short assessments done by the teachers in the classroom. My whole point is, and I just glazed over all of those. All of those are a lot of work. And so it's very complex. There are no silver bullets. The only silver bullet I've ever seen is a great teacher. That is the only silver bullet in education. If you're looking for a program to do it or one intervention to make it happen, it's not going to happen. The first place you got to hit are those teachers and get all teachers teaching the best they can, as well as they can, give them the support, give them the mentoring, give them whatever they need. But it's very complex. It's a lot of work. It can be done. I've done it. I've organized it and I evaluated it. But it's quite a work, but that's the work we should be doing.
Thanks, Robert. Anybody else got any comments on that?
We have
Well, go ahead, Diane.
a good intervention program. We did it with, and then ranking the kids just for that 30 minutes with the children that were lower and then on grade level. So everybody was placed in a group. And like Robert says, there's a lot of documentation that you're doing and you're always switching the kids up. It's always going up. If you do it right, the kids are picking that up. And there's a lot of reading in it, but there's also a lot of things that make sure that they've got the comprehension. They're just not memorizing certain words. They have to understand what they're reading. That's the that's the part of third grade level. Make sure that they understand that comprehension component needs to be there.
Yeah. I have no doubt that all those things that have been mentioned are true. But I know that there are best practices out there that have been working that we might be able to take a look at and take elements of those things and incorporate them into the programs that we currently have in place. I'm not suggesting that the current programs we have in place are not good, not that at all. I also know that there's an impact if you've got 24 kids in a classroom versus 16, that has an impact. My point is, I think we can do better. Our test score numbers that up until we didn't test last year they were showing improvement, but they were still not dramatically improved. Thanks to having lost it, the learning loss associated with the pandemic. I think this gives us kind of a unique opportunity to kind of reset and start fresh, or not necessarily start fresh, but certainly a reset, reevaluate, and make a stronger push towards making sure that our kids are at grade level, especially K3. I would far prefer that they were at grade level K12, but we know that that is an undertaking that is probably simply not possible given the circumstances that we all are in today. So, but anyway, I would very much like a focused approach towards K3. And thank you, Marion, for your comments there. I think you're absolutely right on target. Talking with the folks.
For my master's project I was working with Hannah and some of the team over there. And so, I have some literature that I could give you, some books and resources, so you can kind of see some of the angles that they're working on.
I'd love to see it. Absolutely.
Okay.
So, moving on to a second topic is actually more in Nikki's bailiwick, as I'm interested in the board developing a policy that speaks to the minimum reserve that we should maintain moving forward. Currently, we don't have a set dollar amount or a set percentage that we've accepted as a reserve set at a board level. I think it would be prudent for us to actually discuss that at our next board meeting, and I'd be interested in what other districts are doing with respect to their reserves. I do agree with you. A 3% reserve is ridiculous. We approached that a number of years ago after the 2008 turndown in the economy. I don't ever want to see that ever get close to that again, except in an absolute emergency, because that's what that fund is for. Clearly, if we didn't pass the bond and the budget had taken the hit that the state had predicted would happen last March, even the reserve that we currently have would simply not have been enough. So I think we need to actually evaluate whether or not we have a more designated reserve, if you will, from the board.
And I will tell you that there are two types of policies. One policy sets a percent, which is kind of hard to do. The other one is that I've seen very common is you have a minimum of 2 months of operational cost as an absolute minimum. And so there are really two ways to think about fund balance.
Right. Well, I would be perfectly willing to entertain either of those kinds of methodologies. I'd like to find out what other districts are doing and have a more focused discussion on that particular element of the budget.
Sounds good.
If anybody has anything else, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I
Please
move
make a motion to adjourn. Diane is seconding it.
Yes.
If
I
no
second.
You're a little slow on the button, Paula. You're thirding it.
No, I just want to say, if we want to discuss this, I need just a couple of minutes to speak. I don't know if it's with the whole group or if it's just with Mark or what, but I need a couple minutes. It's about that note that you sent.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to Zoom?
I guess I want to talk to you, or I want to talk. Maybe it's something we should put on an agenda for next time, not necessarily numbers, but in general policies concerning things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I know I need to talk to you, but I don't know if I would think the whole board would need to discuss it. And maybe it's something we should do at the next session.
Or, because we also have to talk about another issue.
Okay.
Personnel issue.
Oh, okay.
Remember, we're going to get together about that?
Yep.
Okay, so why don't you and I hit it first?
Oh, okay.
And then we can put some notes together for the board.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I have no discussion. Thank you.
All right. Paula, I'll look at my schedule and see if I can do it Thursday or Friday.
Oh, okay. Friday's super good for me, please.
Okay.
Anytime you want, though.
All right.
We have an adjournment on the
No,
table.
vote, no.
It's been motioned and seconded.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.